Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, I have a confession to make. I am very bad at drawing. I'm an extremely useless visual artist. I can't even draw a straight line. But I've always loved colors and coloring books. And yes, my pictures could have looked terrible when I was young. And yes, I couldn't stay within the lines, and the color choice might be quite unusual, let's put it this way. And some people could comment on that a lot. But I didn't care. At a very young age, I realized that any art is art. Any color is a color. Any choice is a choice. And that is the principle that has helped me to this day to make my whole life brighter. And it doesn't really matter which color I used to paint my life with. Any color would do its good. And sometimes, of course, people can judge us. People can say that we are wrong, we are using something wrong, and we are not doing anything that suits them. But if it suits us, that's the best way to do that. And again, I'm going to emphasize it once again. It doesn't matter which color you choose. And my life is a living proof that the coloring book of life is handmade by us and only us. And it is up to you and only you which colors you will apply to the contours, and also you will be responsible of. And the result of this coloring is always great, no matter which colors you choose. I'm going to try to illustrate it with some examples. I speak and teach Swedish while living in Russia, which is quite unique. Many people in Russia don't understand why I'm still here. Many people in Sweden don't understand why I'm still here. And 90% of people don't understand why I had to begin with Swedish in the first place. And I had a very specific reason to do that. And no, it was not a very logical, rational reason. Have you heard of a little thing, the tiniest probably in the world, called Eurovision Song Contest? Well, my fascination about this contest led me to hearing the song. The song that unfortunately never got to the actual contest, but got stuck forever in my heart. Så vill stjärnorna by Molly Sandén. A 16-year-old girl in a white dress belting out these beautiful notes in the soothing ballad. Let's pretend that we hear that. And basically, this very song led me to start learning Swedish. I was only 15 back then, and I couldn't be independent in terms of my opinions at all. I was dependent on my friends' opinion, my parents' opinions, and even my group mates who I started learning this wonderful language with on October 4th, 2009. I was told that Swedish is useless, since everybody speaks English in Sweden. I was told that it's a stupid idea to fall in love with the language due to some girl who wanted to represent Sweden at this joke of a contest. Well, that's how Eurovision was perceived back in the day in Russia. Still is, which is quite unfortunate. And I was ashamed of my own love, let's put it this way. I was ashamed of embracing this story. I even used to pretend that I didn't fall in love with her, that I didn't fall in love with the contest or the language. I used to say that my mother thought that I fell in love with this girl, Molly, and she motivated me to learn Swedish. And the reason seems quite weird, but finally it led me to some amazing things that I couldn't even imagine. I actually, due to this girl, I colored my life with yellow, white, of course, blue and yellow, and these colors are engraved in my life forever. But when I started, little did I know that I would not only learn Swedish and speak it fluently, but I will actually, in 2012, during my first trip to Sweden, meet up with this wonderful girl who actually empowered me to learn Swedish. And that I will share with her my story, and that she will still remember me to this day. How do I know it, you will ask? Well, We are Facebook friends. Let's put it this way. And that deserves a wow, obviously. But it was her who added me to the friends list. So, yeah, and I do know that she remembers me, and I do hope that one day I will be able to come back and hug her again and thank her for the life that I'm having right now. That is brightly colored with white, yellow, and blue. But little did I know when I started that Swedish would lead me to amazing adventures. For example, volunteering at world's biggest events, such as Olympics, World Championships in Athletics, Football World Cup. And interestingly, when we volunteer, we need to wear a uniform. And usually it's quite bright colored, blue, red, or such multicolored as you can see on the picture. We were called parrots by people because of this wonderful pattern. And we were always able to shine bright in gloomy city landscapes where we were volunteering. Actually, my red shirt that you're observing at this very moment shone bright all over the Swedish media during Football World Cup. The reason was the following. I was volunteering at a very special place, a training arena for the Swedish national team at the city of Gelendzhik. And they won against South Korea. That was the first match. And we decided to congratulate them upon this occasion. We printed posters, we bought balloons, we decorated their dressing rooms, and I was asked to create a short speech in Swedish to present it through speakers. But 10 minutes before the announcement of this speech, I decided to do one of the craziest things that I have ever done in my life. I decided to combine two of my passions, Swedish and singing. And actually what I did was the following. Du gamla, du fria, du fjällhöga nord, du tysta, du glädjerika sköna. Jag hälsar dig vänaste land du på jord. Din sol, din himmel, dina ängder gröna. Din sol, din himmel, dina ängder gröna. As you can imagine, I decided to sing a bit of the Swedish national anthem. The response was overwhelming from the footballers, from many other people, and especially from journalists who were present at this training arena. Because instead of filming footballers running around and kicking the ball around, they decided to interview me, which was quite unusual and unexpected. They were asking me about my story, my Swedish, my singing, and literally in every single newspaper, there were news about me all over Sweden. This story became viral. And the response from Swedes, who I didn't know, was tremendous. People were contacting me on different social media, thanking me for this gesture. There were a lot of posts all over the social media where in the comments, people thanked me for this gesture, thanked me for my story. Not thank me too much for my singing, but still. But can you guess who was the one person who actually surprised me the most reacting to that? That person was the producer of Eurovision Song Contest himself, Christer Björkman. And he wrote to me an email thanking me for this gesture, and he actually expressed the desire to include a bit of me in the next year's broadcast of Swedish national selection of Eurovision. Well, unfortunately, it never happened, but the gesture was great. And actually, that was the proof that deciding to color my life a bit differently, in red this time, can lead us to amazing things and amazing insights. But I would be really wrong if I broadcast the idea that the color palette of life is always full of bright colors. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to paint our life black. And sometimes this black, even not visible, to a naked eye. A couple of years ago, a younger version of me made a choice. He decided to enter the best university in the country to study philology. And back then, he thought that it was the best decision of his life, the most important, the most changing and challenging at the same time. But little did he know at that very moment that he was about to put himself into two darkest years of his life. 2 years of judgment, 2 years of labeling, 2 years of subjectivity. And he didn't expect that from that bunch of people who he was about to meet. He was bullied and frowned upon for his interest for Swedish and Eurovision once again, just like when he was 14, 15, when he started learning Swedish. But this time, it was made by people who shared the passion for Swedish with him, and it hurt much more. And the decision to put himself into this dark cave of studies, of trying to fit in, trying to figure out what's going to be the best option for him, created this black plague of these 2 years. And the thing was that he didn't understand one thing. Why was he frowned upon again for his interest in music, in pop music, in art, and not actually wanting to be interested in Swedish politics, Swedish history, Swedish literature, as everybody in his group did? But was he supposed to, though? Did he really have to blend into this background in order to survive? Did he actually need to hold his horses back? Why? It turned out that the principle there was the following. Either you do whatever they say, or they will make his life miserable. He decided to fit in, okay? He thought that maybe something would change throughout this course. According to the diploma, the whole program that he attended lasted 4,320 learning hours. And he hated pretty much every second of them. Attending utterly useless classes, trying to write theses that he hated. But he thought that there was the hope at the end of the tunnel. But unfortunately, the escape cave that he was putting himself in was going in even deeper and darker. And at the end of this road, when he actually hoped that something would change and his academic advisor would actually take him on the PhD studies, which he planned on doing sincerely, she said that he was not worthy of this scientific society. Not even a little bit. That was the moment when he realized that he was not only painting his life black and not only doing it with a pencil, but actually he was doing it with a thick brush, fully dipped into black gouache. But the problem was that it was his decision to paint his life black. Have you ever experienced that when you actually realized that you were painting your life black? Not the obstacles, not some people around, not some circumstances, it was you. Well, luckily I see some nodding. So I was not the only one. Thank you for the support. The problem was that for him, back then, it was the most devastating thing that has happened to him. But what he didn't realize, and what I do realize now, a couple of years later, that was actually the most liberating thing that has happened to him. The academic advisor, the group mates, the professors, they saw that he was putting himself into this dark hole. And they tried to rescue him from it. Well, they were doing it for their sake, but still, they were right. Well, and they could have worded it much nicer, obviously. But he decided to try to continue to live in this mystery of misery. He applied for another PhD program at another university, not knowing what was to come. But luckily, 2 days before the first entrance exam, he realized that it was not his thing at all. Completely. He was about to sacrifice 3 years of his life in order to get nothing. Literally nothing. No guarantee. Maybe a title. Sounds fancy, right? But For him, back then, it was definitely not the most important thing. He realized that basically he needs to turn this blackened page that he decisively put with the black color on. And it was much easier than painting all over this black. Because black, as you can see, submerges all the colors that are not contrasting enough. He finally understood that probably, just probably, there is a light and there are some other colors. And he doesn't have to define himself only by this experience, by hating that moment and by hating all of these 2 years. And this realization is actually amazing. But sometimes it takes a lot of time to process that and try to turn this blackened page. It took me 2 years and one international exam, passed in front of my former academic advisor by a chance, actually. Out of all people who spoke Swedish in Russia, they decided to give me her. But still, he did pass this exam, and he finally could start looking at the building of this university without hate or grief. Ironically, I passed this building earlier today, and I actually just smirked at it, realizing that actually it gave me much boost. And I realized that basically I just need to accept this experience and add it to the palette and not cover everything that he has done before. Of course, coloring our life with different colors is an amazing process, but it sometimes takes time. And sometimes it can happen at a lightning speed. Sometimes it can happen very, very, very slowly. Sometimes it can be beautifully done. And sometimes we want to just angrily paint all over the contours that we have created. But it's our choice. It's our decision. And sometimes it's important to understand that basically we will be disapproved of people, obviously. People will judge on what we wear, what we do, what we take up as our hobby. But the thing is that the decision what to do depends on us, not on other people. And of course, sometimes we have to fight for what we love. We have to actually prove to ourselves that we do belong in what we actually love. And here comes another famous principle in the picture that was taught by this wonderful woman that you can see. Her name is Ásdís Hjálmsdóttir. She's an Icelandic javelin thrower. She's a triple Olympian. And most importantly, as you can see, she's my friend. And she once taught me, if you win, you win. If you fail, you learn. I see coloring my life as a very engaging process. And it doesn't matter which color we would like to apply, whether it's yellow, blue, white, red, black, or any other color. Sometimes your life can turn into the world of black plague, and sometimes it can turn into the world of rainbow colored ponies. But we need to take responsibility of defining what we put into this color and actually trying to explain for ourselves what we put in there. And I decided to take this privilege. I decided that I am the artist, and it's my responsibility to create the contours, pick colors, and define my experience by these colors. And I would like to invite you to do the same. Thank you.